My name is Josh van Valkenburg-Gernert. I'm here today with Casey Knutsen, Hard Rocker football player. First off, let's just get started by talking a little bit about how you grew up. You grew up in Fort Collins. Did you have any siblings? And what was life kind of like growing up there?
Yeah, so I'm an only child. I had a dog growing up, but that was about all the sibling like I had. Just big town, so 4 different high schools. So, growing up in high school, you always got your big rivalries that you play in high school, and you got a bunch of friends that go to different high schools, so it's always nice when you play them and get to beat them. But, yeah, Fort Collins is a good place.
What kind of initially got you interested in getting into sports? So for a lot of people, that is having an older sibling, but what was kind of your interest early on in sports?
Yeah, so my dad actually coached college football for 30 plus years. So I was born in Montana, and he coached up at the University of Montana then. And then he coached at University of Wyoming too. So I was surrounded by football since I was born. So
yeah, so was football did you kind of always know that football was your first love, or did you play other sports as well growing up?
Yeah, so football was definitely my first love, but I grew up playing basketball, soccer, baseball, wrestled, so I kind of did it all.
Sure. And then once you got into high school, I'm assuming you probably just stuck with football and a couple others?
Yeah, so I played football in high school, and then I also played baseball in high school.
Sure. You went to high school at Fossil Ridge.
Yep.
What were some of your, did you have any state tournament runs? Did you have any, individual accolades? Is there anything you look back on and kind of remember fondly from your high school days?
Yeah, so in football, I got all-state and all-conference, and then baseball, I also got all-conference. But I'd say one of the most memorable times I had, we had to do a walk overnight, actually. My freshman year of high school, they called it a ruck walk. And we had a Green Beret was one of our strength coaches. So we had to do a bunch of military type exercises and following rules. And if we didn't, we had to do push-ups and all that. So
yeah, obviously that's a pretty cool memory too. Kind of getting into college, when did you realize that, college athletics was something you were interested in?
I'd say probably after my junior year of high school, I started to talk to some coaches, and then that's kind of when I decided that I wanted to kind of push for football more than baseball.
Sure. And what was kind of your recruiting process like? Were there a few different schools reaching out to you, and what, drove you to eventually choose South Dakota Mines?
Yeah, so I talked to Black Hills State, Colorado Mesa here, and a couple other schools around the country, and I'd say I really chose here just because of the atmosphere of the city. I really like Rapid City. As soon as I took my official visit, I just kind of fell in love with the school. I really liked the coaches, the people that were around here, the administration, the students, and just Rapid City in general.
And since you've been here, obviously you've been involved in a few things. Obviously you're not just a football player, you play 2 positions. You play D-back and punter. Mm-hmm. What is that kind of like to be able to split your time and have to balance your time to continue to progress at each spot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd say definitely the majority of the time at practice is spent at safety, but punter is still really important. That's a big play that we have to kind of always make sure is right. So we always, before practice, we're always practicing our punting, our long snapping, just making sure that chemistry is always there.
Sure, and obviously you've had some success at both spots. Going into last season, the 2021 season, you were a preseason All-American punter. Mm-hmm. Then obviously honorable mention All-Conference. What is it kind of like to be able to see your play rewarded in that way?
It's really special. It feels really good because all the hard work that you go throughout the summer and the winter, and a lot of people don't realize how much lifting, conditioning, practices we go through just to be able to play 11 games a season.
And you're going into your junior year, correct?
Yep.
What has it kind of been like? So you've basically been here since Coach Floor got here. Mm-hmm. What has it kind of been like to see, the culture shift and the growth of the program during that time?
Yeah, so my freshman year was Coach Tinker's last year, so it was really a big culture change to kind of see Coach Floor come in and take everything right away. We got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, but all the other coaches were the same. So it was good to have all our position coaches be the same, so we all knew them, but the coordinators that came in were really good, really connected with all of us. And then Coach Floor really has started to change the culture in a really good way.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it not just on the field, but you can see it in talking to some of the players too, just how much they're good people, and not just, you're involved in community service. Obviously, the Ally Association is a big deal with the football players. What does it mean to you to, be able to be involved in some of those community service things?
It's really important to me. I think every sport needs to reach out into the community, because that's how you get more fans. That's how the city supports you. I mean, if you're getting out there to reach back to the community and give back to them, they're going to want to come and support you at your games, and that's really what we like to see too.
Sure, and that's something that's been important to you for a while, because you were involved in a group in high school as well, correct?
Yep, I was a part of the Young Men's Service League, it was called. A bunch of moms actually put it together. You actually work with your mom and then a bunch of other friends, so it's kind of good to go out and volunteer and like cook meals for the homeless and build new homes, and you get to do it with your mom, but you also get to do it with your friends as well. So it was a really neat experience.
So what kind of what does it do for you personally to be involved in those things? Does it make you feel like you're making an impact, and what for you, what does it do for you to be involved in those things?
Yeah, it's definitely a good feeling to know that you're giving back to people that might not have the best opportunities that I got or that other people might have. And just as long as you can give back in some way, it's really important for me at least.
Sure. Getting back to the field a little bit. Obviously last year, 6-5 was the first winning season for the program in a while. How proud does that kind of make you to know you were a part of that? And then what do you kind of have to do from your standpoint and a team standpoint to continue that growth?
Yeah, so that season was really good for us. Obviously, as you said, it was our first winning record in a while, and it's just kind of a building block for us now. That's kind of like the standard that we've set now, and we're not really planning to have any more losing seasons for a long time. So just building off of 6-5 just to keep climbing up that record. Yeah,
and you obviously, as a team, you bring back a bunch of guys, so it's pretty realistic to expect. Obviously, you never know in football, but it's pretty realistic to expect, some growth. But what do you have to do specifically from a DB standpoint, from a special team standpoint, to help kind of encourage that growth?
Yeah, so I mean, playing DB, we got to be very vocal on the field and definitely know what's going on. So if anyone doesn't know what's going on, we got to make sure that they're on the same page as us. I mean, one of our coaches says if we're all right, we're all wrong. So I mean, if we're all running the wrong play, but we're all doing it the same way, then we're all on the same page, so we're doing it okay.
Yeah, for sure. And then we kind of already talked about the community service piece. Obviously, this is a very rigorous academic school. You're a civil engineering major. What does that kind of look like? What does your day-to-day look like? Obviously, you practice you have football practice, but outside of football, what does your day look like?
Yeah, so a majority of the day is definitely spent in class or in labs or studying, getting tutored. So it's definitely a long day before football, but as soon as you get to football, it's nice to be able to decompress at football and just focus on football.
Sure. One thing I've kind of heard from other students here too is that their hobby is the sport they play in, because there's just not enough time in the day to have other things. Is that kind of the case for you as well?
Sometimes it kind of depends on the week for sure, but I definitely like to try and get away from football and school and just enjoy my own personal life too. I think it's really important to make sure that my personal life isn't absorbed in school and football, because then it's just constant.
Sure. So what are some of the hobbies you do? Are you a movie guy? What kind of things do you like to do when you're not in school or playing football?
Yeah, so I just really enjoy hanging out with like my friends and my roommates. Every night we try and watch a new show all together as roommates, or play Xbox, or just all do something together, not really focusing on anything.
Sure. With civil engineering, what do you think your plans are going forward with that? What would you like, once you get a career, what would you like for that to be?
So I actually wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do after college. This past summer I had a construction job, and I was just a laborer, so I didn't really do any of the math side, but I did get to see some of the plans that we had and see in class on a whiteboard on real paper. So it's kind of nice to be able to transfer my knowledge from class into the workforce. So I think I'm going to probably try and do something with construction, I think.
Sure. So what are your goals, going forward, whether it's as a team, as a player, or in your personal life?
Yeah, so obviously team goal is win an RMAC championship. That's kind of the standard that we've set since last year. I mean, we think we've got the talent. We've got, as you said, we bring a lot of guys back, and we know that we can do it. We just got to execute everything.
Sure. And then kind of what else, you kind of mentioned you eventually want to maybe do some of the math stuff with construction. Where's your ideal, landing spot once you graduate? Is there a certain state? Is there a certain, anything? Or are you just kind of pretty open to doing whatever?
I'm pretty open. Yeah, I don't really have a set place. My mom lives out in Maryland, so I've been out there a couple of times. I really like the East Coast. And then obviously being here around the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, it's really nice to be around the mountains. So really wherever, just kind of see where it lands.
Sure. Just the last couple things here. What would you kind of tell somebody who was interested in coming here as a student but hadn't made up their mind yet? What would you tell them to get them to come here?
I would say definitely visit. That's kind of what made me want to come here, is coming here, looking at the school, seeing the people that are around the buildings and how they interact with you, how the other students are, if you like the city that the college is in, because that's kind of a big deal breaker if it's a bad place to.
Sure, and I guess kind of a similar question for somebody who has made their decision and is maybe going to be a football player or just a general student. What advice would you give them on how to succeed here?
I would say definitely get in study groups. My freshman year, it's a hard transition, definitely from high school to college, but if you get a group of friends that you kind of have all the same classes in, that you can study with, do homework with, bounce ideas off of, or just going into the tutoring center, because it's a great tool to be able to use and get through stuff.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today, Casey.
Thank you for having me.